So when I got the brief for this talk, I thought it would be a little boring to just run through the product, because what Sparrho is, it's a research tool, a literature search tool, recommendation tool that we're trying to tune for a wider audience. You know, we believe that science, there's plenty of very, very good researcher-focused scientific databases and search tools out there with a lot of different parameters that you can set, and you can find exactly what you want. But what we really wanted to build was something that people without scientific training could use. And so rather than talking about the product, which if you go to the site now, what you'll find is a very simple search bar. If you see the search results, you'll also find that it's very minimalist. And it's the idea of not trying to overwhelm somebody who might have found out that, say, their child has had diabetes or has been diagnosed with diabetes, and they just want to find some information that isn't from the Daily Mail. And it's giving somebody that type of access, which isn't going to be like Google Scholar or PubMed, just that little bit more friendly. And I think actually what we heard earlier today, the idea of making sure that thinking that as you're designing a product, thinking about your audience as real human beings who have needs, just beyond the informatics side of it. So I'm not going to go through too much tech detail, but I do want to go through some of our principles, and you know, this is something that I really want to have a conversation with everybody here later on. I think I come from a research background, but one of the really key things I want us to all remember as scientists is that when we publish a piece of content, whether it's a blog post or a data set or a paper, you know, the whole point of publishing it is so that people can use it, people can refer back to it and maybe get inspired by it to do something else. And which is why when we design the product, we think about everything that we import in these three ways. And these are the three key pillars that we always think about when we're building the product. You know, the idea that something is accessible is not new. You know, we've had libraries for many, many, many centuries. You know, there is a lot of information out there, and it is accessible. Some of it is not. I mean, now's not the time to have a question or have a discussion about paywalls. But you know, largely speaking, there's a lot of stuff that's accessible out there. One of the problems we do want to just tackle first is how do we make the stuff that is accessible discoverable? Because there are many, many, many open access papers out there that are underutilized and not really read as much as perhaps they could be. I'm going to show you a diagram that one of our interns, actually a physics PhD graduate, came and did for us. This is just a selection of 70,000 papers in our database, and we have a machine learning engine, and that often overwhelms people. The idea is just that, you know, we're using, you know, some more sophisticated statistical techniques to analyze full texts or any type of metadata we have around it. And we're trying to build these networks and these clusters of papers. And once you've got that, essentially that allows you to either display results as a prioritized list, as you would in Google, so, you know, search results, or you could start looking at clusters and start recommending things to people where they might otherwise not have looked. One of our big, I wouldn't say USPs, it's just one of the big things that we do, is that we make sure that we have cross-discipline sources, and then also that all the results are intermingled together. You know, why not display all of the results from PubMed, Archive, and Scopus, and all the other different journals that we've been asked to import, you know, all in the same list? You know, there's no reason you need to go to different silos. So this is one of the first things that we were tackling in the last 3 years, you know, making sure that was available to the general public. And our tool, for that very reason, is it's free to use, and it will always be free to use. One of the newest things that we have been looking at is actually getting the researcher to become a curator. And I think when I was talking to Dan from F1000, he put it very eloquently, you know, this sort of crowdsourced recommendation. You know, how can we get, you know, everybody in the lab has their thoughts on, you know, which papers are related to what and why that might be a useful collection to read in one go, and say, you know, Linda here, you know, she's created this pin board, what we call a pin board. Essentially, it's, you know, it's a short summary with a bunch of references. We've just decided to display it in a way which gives a balance between what is written and also the actual references. And if you had clicked on those cards, you would then see a modal or, you know, a pop-up with the actual research paper, and then you can link back to the original site. What we're trying to explore as a company really is how can we get everybody, from the junior researcher all the way up to senior academics involved in the idea of scientific communication. I think a lot of the themes we heard today are very encouraging, and so hopefully this can grow. The last bit that I do want to talk about, and I think this is where I feel AI and machine learning, all of this has a bad rap, because if you're trusting any algorithm to do something, you're kind of trusting it to give you the right results, and you're trusting it not to be biased, and you're trusting the stuff that goes in is not garbage, so that the stuff that you get out is not garbage. A lot of this stuff, we talk about within the AI community again and again in terms of reliability. And this is something that is not easily tackled from a technology perspective. You can't just write a smarter algorithm. You can't just write more rules and just hope everything goes well. Actually, what happens is the more rules you have and the more complex your algorithm is, the less anybody knows what's going on. So this is what we're looking at in the coming years, and I will be leading this too. Thinking about reliability. If a junior researcher decides to create a collection of papers that they think are relevant, how do we help them make sure that this is the right way to present that collection? I don't think people misinform people out of malicious intent. A lot of it is just misinterpretation. So a lot of that is, how can we help people? It's not peer review. I think peer review is quite an ominous word, but how can we make sure that communication happens, to make sure anything that's put on the internet, whether it's published by a junior researcher or a journalist or a senior academic, is trustworthy and reliable? Because if we don't do that as a community, we're going to lose relevance. There's already so much talk about post-truth, fake news. We've heard all these words already. We don't want people to get annoyed with experts because we don't govern the way we present ourselves in public. So I'm sorry there's not a lot of tech in this Tech Slam talk. I just wanted to raise these issues because I think it's important that as we progress as a technology company, that we're also talking about the soft side of things and not just talking about, we did this quicker and we've got these new features. Seeing that I have the platform, I want to bring to your attention, if you are a researcher and if you are interested in making sure more people know about your research, we've actually been running a researcher prize. I have to say the amount is not huge, but hopefully it can cover a transcontinental flight, so it's £500. And the only requisite is that you create a pinboard and you write a summary that is easy to understand for everybody involved. And so at the moment, it's just a small scale thing we're doing. Hopefully, if we get more funding, we can raise this to a higher level. We've already had 4,000 applications, which is quite sad because I've only been able to present 10 people with the prize. But what is really, really interesting is that I have a huge amount of applications from Africa and India, Pakistan, and also South America trying to get to conferences in Europe. And it's such a shame that it actually, when I speak to them, it is just the money. It stops them from going to the academic conferences and being part of discussions like this. And if we want to tackle diversity, if they're not there, they can't talk. So I think that's sort of one of the things, this is why I feel really strongly about this. And you'll see more of these people around. A lot of the things we're doing also is giving them more exposure, telling their local press that they've got some science superheroes in their hometown. We've been able to place most of these people in their local press. Everybody wants to hear that they've got a really cool person working in their area. So finally, just I am hiring for a growth scientist to help me with this. Essentially, growth just means getting more people to use the product and understand what it's about. Scientist, because it would be great to have somebody who understands academia inside out. And then I'm also looking for closure developers, if there are any in here, which I'm not sure there are. But you've got all my contact details, and you can grab me later. I'm also speaking at 3 p.m., so I've been very, very spoiled today. Thank you.